The last thing we're going to look at in reports, and this is kind of a combination of forms and reports. So I put it at the end of reports so that you have your forms knowledge and also your report knowledge. But we're going to bring these together. So the dialog form is a form, and in that form we can choose parameters. So we can say this customer or this date range, and then we will run the report. So we're actually bringing together that parameter piece that we learned with queries as well. But really we're bringing together the forms and the reports, and we're going to create this. So we're first going to take a look at how a report can use parameters. Then we're going to build the form that launches the report, and then we're going to show you how to use and create a field that will populate the information and essentially filter the report, which really is filtering the query or the table. So we're bringing a few things together, and I'm going to show you first what it looks like, what we're going for, and then we'll build it. So we're going to start here with the form. So this is a form that is used to select a report and then also to select a period and potentially years, quarters, month, and so on, and then launch the report. So you would select which sales report you were interested in, let's say sales by customer, and then you would select the sales period, monthly, quarterly, or annually. Then you would pick the year, and depending on your selection above, the quarter and the month. And then from here you would hit preview and it would launch the report. So this one's quite complex. We're going to build a little simpler one so that you can see the steps and know how to build this, but it will give you a little bit of an isolated view of how all these things will come together. So in keeping consistent, we're going to use the same report here. We're going to use this customer order report that we've been creating and adding to and building on. And we are going to essentially create a form that will launch this report with the option of being able to just choose a single customer and not having to look at all the customers. So that's going to be how we build it out. So this is the report that we're going to use. We're going to need to do a couple of things, including building a brand new form along with a field that will let us choose the customer, and then we need to make that customer be able to be filtered within our report. So we're going to connect all these dots together. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to figure out this report. We're going to recall where this data is coming from. We know it's coming from a query because we're pulling data from multiple tables, but that's going to be the first thing that we do. So we're going to go into design. And from here, we're going to check out the order summary. That's the record source that this report is based on. So it's a query. So I have that open already. So here's the query. So we've got a query that's based on a couple of tables as well as another query. And what we need to do, again, we're going to use customer as our field that we're going to filter on. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create a parameter. If you recall what that is, it means that we can filter on the fly. So we're going to need to create a parameter based on the customer ID. Now, when we were in queries before and we created a parameter, we just entered in the question that we wanted to pop up. That would be one way to do it, but we're going to take it to the next level, and we are instead going to create a parameter query that is going to grab information from a form. So we don't have that field information up yet because we need to create the form to do that, but now we kind of know the pieces. So we've got the report, we've got the query, now we're going to create a new form. So in this case, we're not going to make it super fancy, or we're just going to start with something really simple. So we're going to do a blank form. We're actually going to do it in design view. So I could have clicked design form here as well. And from this spot, what we're going to do is we are going to add some fields, some information. So again, we're going to keep this pretty simple and straightforward, but I am just going to say this is the sales. Let's see, we'll call it the customer order report. Okay. And just to give it a little bit of a heading. And then we're going to ultimately have just a few things on here. One of the things that we're going to put on here is going to be a button. That button is going to allow us to actually launch or preview that report. And then we're going to have some kind of a control that's going to allow our user to pick which customer. So back here in form design, that's probably going to be best as a combo box or a drop-down box. So I'm going to click that. So remember, when we use a combo box, it's going to walk us through a wizard. We've done this before when we were creating a form, but we're going to have a little different lens on this. So where do we want the data to come from? Well, we're trying to pull from customers, so we do want it to come from the customers table. And we really care pretty much always about the ID field, because that's going to be our unique identifier, and then just the company name. The default sort is fine, so we're going to leave that blank. This is what it's going to look like. It's hiding the key column. We're going to choose next, and we're just going to call it company dropdown. Now when we add that in there, that becomes the label. So we're actually going to change that, knowing that that's the label. We're going to say choose company, choose actually customer. And separate that a little bit. We're going to make this a little bigger. Our customer names might be a little bit larger. We're going to go to the property sheet. Now, this has the name of combo 1. That's just the default name when we create a combo box. So we're going to name this something, again, useful. So we're going to call it customer dropdown. Okay. So before we do anything else, we're just going to take a look at our form, and we're going to see, does it bring up the choices that we want? And yes, it does. Okay, so there's our customers. Back here, we're going to save this. We need to give this form a name. We're going to call it Customer Report Dialog. That'll be important to know later. Now we're going to go back to our query, and we're going to go to that customer ID field, and we are going to reference that combo box that we just selected. So the way that you do this is by using the build tool. So I'm going to right click, choose build. We're going to use this expression builder to reference and find that data on the form we just created. Just a little bit about this screen. So we have the elements over here on the left. So this is the query that we're in right now. We were in functions and constants and operators before. This is our database. So I'm going to open up our database, and we're going to find that form that we just created. It may still be loaded. Customer report dialog. So anything that's open would be loaded. And then we're going to pick that field, customer dropdown, and we're going to choose OK. So that becomes the field that we use, and that's how it grabs the information. So now we're done with the query. So we're just going to save it, and we're going to close it. Before we go too far, I just want to point out what this looks like, what this connection between the form and the query and the report looks like. So when we hit build, what it did here is it said we're going to look in the forms, we're going to look in the customer report dialog form, and we're going to grab whatever's in the customer drop-down control. So that's how it maps out or points to that particular location on the form and finds the right data. So back here in our form, we now need a button that will launch the actual report. So in our form design, we're going to click button. We're going to just put it right down here. We're going to make it a report operation because we want to open or preview a report. We're going to choose Next, and now we're going to pick the report name. I have it open right here. So we're going to go to the Customer Order Report dialog, and we're going to choose Next. We're going to put text on the button, Next, and Finish. So Preview Report is the text. We can change that if we want, but again, in the spirit of just keeping it simple, we're going to go ahead and leave it like that. Let's take a look at our form, see how it looks. So we've just got our name, we've got our customers, then we've got our preview report. I'm going to close that report in the background. It was helpful to have it open so that I know the name of it. You can also just write it down. But now that I'm going to launch that report, I want it to be closed so that it will properly go out and find the information in the query and in the parameter that we're going to pick right here. So we're going to pick a customer or company. We're going to choose Company A. We're going to click on Preview Report. And here we are in Print Preview, and we are only looking at Company A. It's a one-page report as opposed to a 4 or 5-page report that we were looking at before. So that's, again, in a very simple way, allows you to see how that would work to connect a form to a report that is based on a value in that form that pushes through to the report and acts like a filter. I'm just going to close it again. I'm going to pick a different customer, a different company. I know not all of these have orders, so let's try Company C and hit Preview. Yep, that one works. We'll try one more. Company J, that one works. Again, different numbers. We can see there's different order IDs, and we can see how that works. So that is utilizing a dialog form to open a report that is based on a parameter that is stored or selected in a form.